What is up there everyone, it's the Gardener Gamertag here, and today I want to talk about Rainbow Six Siege, and more specifically the attacking operator Capitão. Now Capitão was added back in Season 3 of the first year of Rainbow Six Siege, and I think he has real promise as an operator, because his kit is actually very useful. You've got a tactical crossbow which has 2 smoke bolts, and in fact the smoke bolts are really useful because only half of the attacking operators have access to smoke grenades, so he's almost indispensable when you need to make a plant for your team. And then the other 2 bolts are firebolt, which once they hit the ground cause the whole ground to set on fire, and it really does stop the enemies getting in. And of course, once the fire runs out, you can do the exact same role by just sitting at the same angle pointing your gun at that area, so you've always got that as a backup in case you run out. It's a very useful little strategy. And what's more, you can actually use this against a Capitão. If you scare them, they can fire their crossbow bolt and burn themselves to death. You know you're against a top tier operator when by giving them a small fright you can cause them to suicide. Now, all jokes aside, you can probably tell that actually I have a pretty low opinion of this operator. Unfortunately, he's nowhere near his glory days of when he first got added. When he was first added to the game, he was the entry fragger. He would storm into the building with his frag grenades and his assault rifle. He would catch any unaware defenders and then use his smoke bolts to cover his teammates' plant. Then, once the plant was down, he'd use his fire bolts to then stop the defenders getting in and retaking the objective. And that was a really effective strategy with him. Then he eventually got nerfed because I guess at that point in the game they decided that he was too powerful. But at this point, when we're coming up to Year 3, Season 3, he's not that useful anymore. You almost never see him get played. Even in the higher levels of Ranked and Pro League, you almost never see him. In fact, if you look at the Ubisoft chart for attacking operators, he is one of the lowest picked and lowest win rate operators, with about a 7 to 8% pick rate and about a minus 1.75 win ratio. That quite clearly shows that he is in dire need of an upgrade, and that was the purpose of this video, is to discuss, does this operator need something done about him and what could we do to make him better? Because I do think his Sky operator needs a big upgrade because he's very underwhelming to play. I would love to play Capitão because I actually think he's really cool. He has a really cool gun. His gadget, whilst a bit unusual, is still quite cool to use. However, the gadget itself I think is probably the cause of most of the problems. The simple fact is the firebolts are pretty much useless a lot of the times. You kind of require your enemies to be stationary to actually kill them. He's pretty much the perfect counter to Tachanka, who is also one of the least picked operators in the game. So you can probably see where I'm coming from here. I've actually only ever had one single kill with this crossbow, and it was on a stationary enemy that I couldn't see. It was quite cool because it was a bit of a meme. It was like, finally I got a kill with this thing. It is actually useful for something. However, why would you pick this over using a frag grenade? Because a frag grenade does the exact same task. The only difference is the frag grenade can be caught by Jaeger's ADS systems. Now, the main problem with the fire is that it very rarely kills people. I've had so many instances, as you're going to see in the clip in the background, where an enemy just runs through my fire. I've put a fire down at a doorway because I want to cover my back, and the enemy just runs through the fire and kills me. They're at very little health, but it's really annoying. He's supposed to be an entry denial attacker, but he doesn't really deny them entry. He just slightly deters them and slightly hurts them when he does use his gadget. That completely defeats his role. If this is actually what he's designed to do, he just doesn't really do it. There's so many operators who have smoke, who have claymores, who have frag grenades, and those are much more useful utilities than his crossbow. I really think that if they're going to go and upgrade him, they need to reassess how they want him to do his role and how powerful they want him to be. Back when he first came into the game, he used to have frag grenades, which were a very useful bit of utility. He no longer has those, and he also doesn't have any breaching power, which means he can no longer fill the role as an entry fragging operator because he will just struggle to get into the building. He is limited to only being able to go through open doorways and windows, which really limits his power. Then his rifle is pretty powerful. It's a very useful weapon, which is a good part of his kit. However, then when you come to the crossbow, as I've already explained, the firebolts are very lackluster. The smoke bolts are really useful. I really like those. They're very useful for making a push into an objective because the enemies cannot stop them going off. Once you've fired the bolts, they will go off. Nothing will stop that. However, the firebolts are just almost useless. They are very useful when you've already got the diffuser down and you need to stop enemies being able to defuse it. That is about the only situation where this bolt is actually useful. I think there are really 2 ways you can go about buffing this operator. The first way is to make his gadget more powerful. Perhaps make it so that it can cover the area of a double doorway and anyone who tries to run through the fire will either be downed or instantly killed. Perhaps it can be changed depending on the armour of the operator. Considering that at the moment 3 speed 1 armour operators can run straight through this fire and not die, seems a bit ridiculous because they are supposed to be the more squishy characters in the game. Perhaps make it so that they won't survive the fire but a more armoured operator will. Or perhaps just make it so that outright the enemies have to find another way of retaking the objective. Make it a true entry denial gadget. The other way is to perhaps actually change his kit, give him a bit more utility to his team. Maybe give him breaching charges or give him back frag grenades. Give him some utility that benefits his team and makes him an actual worthwhile pick. Because at the moment, having an operator with a good weapon, very little utility, and some smoke bolts and some very lackluster firebolts means that very few players want to pick him. I almost never see him in the ranks that I play. I play in casual and I'm a sort of a high silver, low gold player. I almost never see Capitão because no one really wants to play him. You feel like you have very little influence on a match and it's just not satisfying when you try and fulfill your role and someone can just run straight through it and have very few problems. But I'm interested to see what you'll think. Am I just talking complete rubbish about this, or do you also agree that Capitão really does need an upgrade? Please feel free to leave that in the comments down below. But I do hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been the guy from the Gamer Tag, and I'll see you on another video.